Special order calendar number 16. Clerk will read the
House Bill 615, Education Prohibited Behavior on School Grounds and Property Application. Favorable report adopted.
recognizing the maker of the amendment. Special order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk. Amendment 853524/1.
Amendment number 1.
So be considered reading of that amendment.
So ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Friends, I woke up Monday morning to a slurry of text messages. There was a local radio show in Southern Maryland that dedicated a whole 3.5 hours of their radio show dealing with student behavior. And I was shocked. I listened to the entire 3.5 hour broadcast, and I was surprised not only by the amount of parents, but the amount of teachers that called in that were upset about student behavior. And look, this isn't a new topic, because we've submitted bills through the years in the past trying to deal with this subject matter to no avail. And it seems like the situation in our schools are getting more and more chaotic, where you're having students roam the halls, and it's really impacting the children that want to learn, the ones that are there to get an education. It's a chaotic situation. And then we come into the chamber on Tuesday, and I see this bill up on the floor. This bill prohibits penalizing disruptive and threatening behavior of students, and essentially amounts to a get out of trouble free card, which I find amazing because it has, not only is it K through 12, it has higher ed in the bill. At this point, these people are adults and they should know how to act. So I have an amendment on the bill, and the amendment, you can read it, it's on the floor system. It's really straightforward. A student who violates this subsection shall be prohibited for 1 year from the date of the violation from participating in or attending any sporting event or extracurricular activity program. We have to have some type of repercussions for bad behavior. It's another tool in the tool chest for our administrators and our teachers to actually get the job done of educating students. And Madam Speaker, I move the amendment. Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I appreciate the gentleman bringing the amendment. I appreciate him sharing the amendment with me beforehand. And I think it's a thoughtful amendment because I believe the gentleman is deeply concerned about behavior in our schools. That's not exactly what this bill is about. This is about us arresting our way out of having students behave better in our schools. And I want to give you a few examples of what we're talking about, but really I think I'll just stick to the amendment and say that what this does is it prescribes a disciplinary behavior for a specific type of behavior. We're not really in the business of doing that. And what this bill tries to do is actually move us away from arresting students for things like refusing to sit in their seats or being in the hallway too much, and moves us toward arresting them for truly crimes that are in the criminal code. And so if we begin to lay out certain disciplinary activities for certain behaviors, then we're taking away that power from the school to manage the situation in the best way possible. And so we really don't want to insert ourselves in there, and so I would ask the body to resist the amendment. Thank you.
Gentleman from Calvert.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Hot off the press in the Southern Maryland News, which covers all 3 counties in Southern Maryland, is an article about how the head of the teachers union in Calvert County took a survey of all the teachers in Calvert County. And that survey just came out, and the teachers said one of their biggest concerns about teaching now is the lack of discipline and the lack of consequences. And that's what this gentleman from Southern Maryland's amendment does. It provides consequences, because right now we have a public school system that is consequence-free. Let me give you an example. There's one teacher that called me recently, as in the last couple of weeks, and said, you know, I have asked to be transferred out of my school because there's literally no learning occurring, because the out-of-control children, the children that have no discipline, are running the school. This teacher was pushed by the student on the ground while other students, a whole gang of them, in fact, were taping this incident. And you know what the consequence was for the student? Initially, 3 days of suspension. For pushing a teacher? And the max consequence, according to this teacher in Calvert, because I asked the question, what could be the max? I think the max was up to 60 or 90 days, but in another public school where they're basically babysat in a classroom, and no learning is occurring there either. So we have a public school system that is consequence-free when students are out of control in that public school system, and the gentleman, the floor leader, says, well, we need to give them flexibility. The fact is they don't have flexibility because they can't actually impose consequences. So that's why this amendment is necessary. For all those reasons, I support this amendment, and I support the teachers who are increasingly leaving the profession because of this specific problem. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the gentleman for his comments, and I also thank him for his concern about discipline in our schools. It is a serious problem, and we have to deal with it. The situation that actually was described there, where you push a teacher to the ground, could be common law assault, and the student could be charged. That's up to the school to decide if they feel like that's called for, and that's not what this amendment's about. But it is about what we're trying to do here is give the schools who know the students best the ability to make those decisions, whether they feel like something rises to common law assault or not. So I still urge everyone to resist the amendment. I will add that the amendment is not about pushing people to the floor. It's about disrupting a sporting event and a specific penalty for doing that.
John Lay from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would the floor leader rise to clarify something, please? Thank you
Floor
so
leader.
much. Did I just hear you say that if a student assaulted a teacher, the school may not charge that student? That is what you said, sir.
Okay, well then why did you ask me? I will tell you what I said and what I meant by it if you'd like me to clarify.
Please,
for you.
that's why I'm giving you a chance to clarify, because people are listening, and we heard you say that a student could assault a teacher, push a teacher to the ground, and the school may not, you said may not, do anything about it.
I didn't say not do anything. I said press charges. You should quote me correctly, please.
So, again,
And then let me
I would,
but now that I've clarified that,
please clarify.
if someone gets pushed over in a street, it's up to people whether they want to press charges or not if it rises to that level. It's not, this is not something new for schools.
The school has an obligation to protect the teachers in the school.
I don't disagree with that.
So, thank you, Mr. Floor Leader. This is all the evidence you need to know that this amendment is needed, because children don't feel safe in school. This weekend, my seatmate and I visited a local firehouse, and we were told stories about one of our high schools that we thought was, frankly, the best high school in Baltimore County. And we were shocked at his reports about what's going on in that school. So if the schools will not impose mandatory consequences for kids, then we should do that. And if kids can't behave at a football game, they assault other students, and the school fails to protect other students, then this is our chance to do it. Colleagues, I urge a green vote on this amendment.
Minority.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Can I ask just one quick question? I know we've been for the
Floor
floor
leader.
Great. So Delegate Mabe did a support with amendment, and specifically they were requesting that the bill be modified to prohibit someone who violates one of these provisions to be prevented from attending extracurricular activities at other schools. Did you consider that in committee?
Yes,
Okay.
we did.
Okay. So I just want to point out that the gentleman from St. Mary's amendment is kind of narrowly tailored and somewhat in alignment with Mabe's request, because what they're saying is that if somebody to the young lady from Baltimore County violates a section, the least we can do is prevent them from attending an extracurricular activity at another school. So I just want to point that out, that MABE, you know, with the Board of Ed across the state, also believes that if somebody violates something serious, that they probably shouldn't attend a sporting event or some other extracurricular activity at another school for a year. So I'm going to be voting in support of the amendment. I think it's also in alignment with MABE, and I appreciate you answering the question. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want
Floor
me to
leader.
do you need me to respond to that? It was sort of a statement rather than a question, but I'd be happy to talk about it if you'd like
Sure.
me to. All right, so it's important for us to review why this bill is in code. It was never put in code to be a disciplinary measure against students. It was put in code to discourage the public from coming into school and disrupting a school. Because when someone from the public comes into a school and disrupts a school or a sporting event, then the school doesn't have as many repercussions because they're not students in the school. They can't take away a year of privileges if they don't want to. But if students are arrested for being at a sporting event and breaking up the bench or doing something they shouldn't be doing, yelling some language they shouldn't, this is the school to prison pipeline at its heart, okay? And so what we need to do is we need to let the schools decide when they're their own students and they have plenty of tools, and one that they don't need unless it rises to the level of assault, arrestable assault, they don't need to arrest their way out of the situation or even for us to tell them what they should do, because every situation is different and every school is different and every student is different, and this is an inflexible response.
So are we still on the amendment?
Well, I'm trying, but because we talked about the bill and why this helps
Sure.
the bill, I thought it was important for me to give that perspective with respect to this amendment.
Sure. Now, I would agree that if the gentleman from St. Mary's amendment was to put a bracket at the beginning of your bill and a bracket at the end, that discussion would make sense. But it's not. His recommendation is just to prohibit someone from attending another school sporting event for 1 year if they're in violation of one of those serious offenses. And to your point, MABE, who are the schools, when you say we want to let the schools decide, that is the schools. MABE is the schools, or the representative in every jurisdiction of the state, and they also agree, based on their testimony, with this amendment. So my question is, why can't we find this middle ground, do what MABE wants, do what the amendment suggests? If somebody molests or attacks another student or a teacher at another school, they probably shouldn't be allowed to go to that other school for a year.
They should probably, depending on...
And it's not a pipeline to prison, it's just a prohibition from them attending the school in which they did that action at.
So again, it depends on the severity of the common law assault that we're talking about here.
But there's no, I mean, I'm not seeing anything in the amendment that would actually subject them to a criminal offense. They're just saying you can't attend a school after you commit a violation.
So what they're saying here is, if we have a situation that doesn't rise to assault, we're going to tell the school what punishment they should administer. And I don't believe that's our place. I think that is not local control for the school system or the
So the
school.
schools are telling us that's what they want in their testimony.
Well, the boards of ed have said it.
Oh, so the boards
But
of
they
ed are
haven't
not
been
the
but they
schools?
haven't been as specific as this.
Okay. All right. So I appreciate you, sir. Thank you.
Thank
so
you.
again, just to reiterate, I'm going to vote in support of the amendment. I carefully read through the testimony. MABE, who represents every school board in the state, is recommending that this bill be modified, the original bill, to say that if you violate one of the sections outlined in the law, that you shouldn't be allowed to participate or attend school activities at other schools. And so that's what the amendment does. It's narrowly tailored. It doesn't do anything to the pipeline to prison or anything like that. And I'll be supporting the amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Young lady from Hartford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just have a question for the floor leader. I skimmed the bill,
Floor
all right,
leader.
and so assuming that we pass the bill without the amendment, what mechanism is going to be into effect to enforce it? Because the guy that got in trouble, or the gal that got in trouble, they go to the other school event, and who's gonna say, hey, you're not supposed to be here, get out of the stadium?
You asked,
So I'm wondering what's the enforcement mechanism, if you could explain that for me.
Floor leader.
there are actually two enforcement mechanisms. One is the school's disciplinary code, okay? The other one would be common law assault, depending on the nature of what happened.
But the point is, the person could still nobody's going to be monitoring whether they go to other events, other school events, when they've been committed the offense and they, have a year suspension from going to other sporting events at other schools. Who's going to say, hey, dude, you got to get out of the stadium?
Well, you'll pardon me if I think you're speaking against the amendment then, because you're saying nobody will be able to keep track of who gets banned for a year anyway. But that's not my argument against the amendment.
Well, how is the parent going to be notified that they pushed a teacher down on the ground?
I would assume so.
You would assume so.
Well, I'm not
we
the
can't assume. There needs to be a mechanism.
I choose my words more carefully. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. For the floor leader, yeah, if you could, I know you might as well stand for a little while.
Sit down if I could.
No worries. I guess my question for you is, don't you think that the schools that are being visited by this disruptive student, let's take, for instance, we just honored some people up at the podium from Glen Burnie High School. So let's say the Glen Burnie High School hates Severna Park High School. Severna Park High School has a very disruptive person. And for a football game, and Glen Burnie's their rival, Severna Park is going to say, no, you know what, you can go to Glen Burnie High School and be as disruptive as you want. Don't you think it would be a common courtesy, knowing that you have a very disruptive student at athletic games, to not send them to a visiting school, knowing that they've got this history of being disruptive, and you're now pushing along a problem, a disruptive student that we would all agree can be a huge problem, to a neighboring school against their will, possibly?
I do actually agree with you on that. I just don't think that we should mandate it in law. Schools, I know this for a fact, when you have a sporting event, administrators from both schools have to be at the event. And therefore, if there were a student that the away school thought shouldn't come to that event, or had, through their disciplinary procedures, not through arresting them, but through disciplinary procedures, had told them they could not go to the game, it would be up to the administrator on duty from that school to, if that student arrived, to tell them they couldn't stay.
But wouldn't you agree that it's usually the disruptive student, oftentimes at a visiting location, that spark that leads to a fire? I mean, everybody in here has read stories about athletic events getting out of control, and I understand once it gets physical, then it goes into criminality. But the ignition to that fire is usually started by a visiting school or vice versa, because let's be honest, emotions get high at football games, at basketball games, at baseball games, and sometimes they just blow up out of control because of one person. It's always usually one person or a group of people that start the jawing back and forth, and then all of a sudden it's out of control. And that's a horrible place to put a lot of our teachers, our other students, our faculty members. As you said, all of our administrators are not trained in Krav Maga. They have to be able to control a situation like this, and I just think we're adding fuel to the fire in these situations by not accepting this amendment.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Floor Leader, and with that, push the amendment.
Madam Speaker.
Yes, Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have a question for the maker of the amendment.
Good morning.
Good morning. So I appreciate what this amendment is trying to do, but I'm taking a look at the bill and what it actually applies to. On page 3, line 6 of the bill, it does look like the category of offenses does include serious conduct, but it also includes attendance disruptions.
Say that again.
It includes attendance disruptions, along with the serious offenses that you're concerned about. Attendance is one of the issues that's listed in the bill. Do you think it's appropriate, if you have a child who you're having attendance problems with in the schools, to cut them off completely from extracurricular activities?
I think it's appropriate that when you walk through the school doors, you have an expectation of behavior. That's the school that we all went to, and that's the school that we grew up in. That we had an expectation of behavior. And if you couldn't meet that behavior, you couldn't live up to that expectation, then you shouldn't be there. And what this
We
bill
want the
does
kids
and
to
what
be
this
there,
amendment
delegate, who
does,
have attendance problems.
no, what this bill does and what this amendment does, it's so benign compared to the floor fight and discussion that we just had. And I'm not going to let you mischaracterize it. It says students who violate the subsection shall be prohibited for 1 year from the date of violation from participating or attending any sporting event or extracurricular program. That's it. There's nothing that has to do with criminal law. Nothing has to do with the police. So anytime we try to make any corrections to student behavior and crack down on some of the chaos that's happening on extracurricular activities, school events, and in the classroom, it gets mischaracterized as the school to prison pipeline and also some scary stuff like that. It is nonsense.
Delegate,
nonsense.
I believe your amendment is crafted much more broad than what you say you're intending
Well, the
to do.
people that run the school system, Mr. Majority Leader, at MABE disagree with your opinion.
Madam Speaker.
Chair of Ways and Means.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My floor leader was doing an amazing job, and thank you to the majority leader, but I had to stand up because I was personally offended by the statement that we constantly are trying to mischaracterize things as the school to prison pipeline. Some folks in this body have the privilege of not having to worry about their children when they step out of their house. Some people in this body have the privilege of not having to worry about their children, their sons, and now their daughters when they enter a school where they are supposed to be protected. And you have heard me say it before, and I will say it again. I worry constantly about my oldest son, who is a super handsome 5 foot, 8.5, 12-year-old, who is bigger than your normal 12-year-old. And so when he steps into a school and has what's considered a disruption, or if he is at a sporting event and is just yucking it up with his friends and is loud, an administrator who is misusing this section of the law will say, you know what? Disruption of schools, please come arrest him, and then now you want him to be banned from sporting events for a year when he plays basketball and football, and I know he's going to do that in high school because he's amazing. So I would urge this body to reject this amendment on the grounds that we are not trying to criminalize disciplinary matters. All of you on multiple occasions stand up. There's no booze necessary on the House floor. There's no booze necessary. Please conduct yourself with respect and accordingly. I have the microphone. I have the microphone. I would ask this body to reject this amendment because we are not trying to criminalize disciplinary behavior. There is an entire criminal code dealt with our amazing judiciary committee here that deals with arrests, and that can happen. We have SROs in schools. We have security assistants in schools. All that are in your schools. We don't need a code in the education article that criminalizes disproportionately African American students, brown students, and also students with disabilities. I would urge this body to reject this amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Gentlelady from Baltimore City.
Madam Speaker, I'm speaking as parliamentarian for the House of Delegates. I think it's really important for us to all remember ourselves. Last week, I requested that everyone dig into their thesaurus. I heard a couple of words that proved to me that people over the weekend did so. But I did see some behavior just now that I think is not becoming of all of us as members of the House of Delegates. I don't require any of us to agree, but I do expect that we follow the rules of decorum as outlined in our House rules and do it in a professional manner. That is all that is requested of us.
Gentleman from Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I completely agree with what the parliamentarian said. However, I would also urge that we apply this consistently because we do have clapping, we have jeers throughout the entire time. So if we're going to do this, we have to be very consistent across the board because I'm hearing on both sides. So I just want to make that statement. Thank you.
Okay. On the amendment.
I just want to let you know, as my dear friend said, I have been doing some hand motions you probably didn't see from there. We do not clap in here. We do not jeer in here unless it's appropriate, and that's for
Or the
everybody.
audience.
And I did that to the audience. I hope they didn't take disrespect, but we're not at a sitcom, live taping. This is a professional environment. So everyone, safe hands to yourselves.
Gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On the amendment, I wanted to share a text message I received one day while sitting in Judiciary that I think speaks to the nature of the problem. Delegate Grammer wanted to give you a quick update on Kenwood High School. There was an altercation between two boys. One pulled out a knife, injury sustained to the other student who has been taken to the hospital. This speaks to the nature of the problem. I actually challenge what the chair said. I think every single person in this state right now is looking at our public education system and they're saying, what the heck is going on? Because it's not a matter of the stories they're hearing, it's a matter of what they're seeing with their own students. And when you talk to teachers, when you talk to parents, I have never, not once ever, heard a situation, heard a story where a parent has said, wow, my kid really got the raw end of the deal and he or she received too much discipline. The story time and time again from teachers, from parents, from students is that the classroom is completely out of control. I've never heard a teacher once lament the school to prison pipeline. I hear every year from parents, from students, from teachers saying, I'm leaving the school system, I'm pulling my child from public schools, I want to get out of my public school because I absolutely hate it. And I think what you're seeing today with this debate is the same thing we're seeing in the juvenile system, and that is a complete lack of boundaries. You don't need to throw every child, every youth in jail for an offense, but every child needs boundaries. And what you're doing again with this bill is you're taking away a tool to provide balance for youth and balance in the classroom. That's why I'll be supporting it today.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I don't believe we're on the amendment now. We're talking about the bill. And the example described by the gentleman is actually one that occurred in a building and not on a sports field. So for now, we should stay on the amendment. We can go to the bill soon. But I will say that I have an anecdotal story of a student who threw a water bottle at a trash can at a sporting event, and it bounced off to the side and hit someone in the leg, and they were arrested. Okay? This is not, and then under this amendment, and that's what we come to, they would have been banned from sports, all sporting events and playing in all sports for 1 year in this situation. So sticking to the amendment, that's an anecdotal story of a situation where we don't need to arrest our way out of simple disciplinary measures. The measures, if someone had a knife at a sporting event, they would be arrested.
On the amendment, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Roll call.
Madam Speaker.
Clerk will take the call. The amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Special order calendar number 17. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 783, Homeowners Associations, Restriction on Long-Term Rentals, Prohibition, favorable report adopted.
Recognizing the maker of the motion.